that the most important project that they'll lead this year is themselves.
Mm.
And if you don't understand the rules of the game, if you don't understand the moving parts, sort of like, let's say I'm a big baseball fan. If I'm on the baseball field and I don't understand, that 3 strikes I'm out, 4 balls I walk, that I got to get to the base before the ball, the third baseman throws it to the first baseman. I don't understand sort of those fundamentals. That puts me at a huge disadvantage in terms of playing the game of baseball.
Welcome to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. Thank you for tuning in. And on today's episode, we have Mike Foster. And Mike Foster is a huge champion of personal development. Mike is the creator of the Primal Question framework and is a master trainer in the model. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the book behind his framework. And then the book is called The Seven Primal Questions. Take control of the hidden forces that drive you. And so the primal question is really a way of seeing your hidden programming, your emotional needs, your supernatural gifts in a really straightforward way. And what Mike is going to provide at the end of the podcast or the end of the interview is provide some guidance and some resources that you can use in addition to the book to help guide you through this framework. So I really hope that you enjoy this podcast episode. I saw Mike Foster speak years ago when Catalyst was around. I was a new leader and he was one of the speakers. Still have the notes from his talk from his previous book that he came out back then. But Mike is an amazing speaker and author, and you are going to enjoy this interview. So let's go into the interview with Mike Foster. Well, welcome, Mike, to the podcast. It's really an honor to have you on and also meet you.
Thanks, Cameron. It's great to meet you too, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, it's really been great to learn from you from a distance. As I was mentioning before we hit the record, saw you first speak at Catalyst Leader when that was around a conference in Southern California
Yes.
years ago, and which was kind of the early on of my leadership journey. So it's great to kind of have this opportunity full circle to get to chat with you and see what you're up to also and talk about some of the new things that you are doing.
Yeah, no, it's that was probably several years ago because it's been a while since I've been at Catalyst, but yeah, it's always fun when uh you meet somebody kind of in a large setting and then you can kind of
Yeah.
actually have a real conversation one-on-one like we're going to have today. It's I think a lot more fun, and we can go wherever we want to go in terms of topics and
Yeah.
what we talk about today.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, before we get going into kind of the basis of our discussion today, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to what we're so for those that are listening, we're going to be talking about personal development and the importance of that. Mike, what really brought you up to this point where you're focused on personal development? So tell us a little about your story.
Yeah, so my kind of Monday through Friday is, and sometimes weekends, is really just helping people develop emotional fitness, really helping people understand their inner world and see how it really impacts our relationships, our work performance, how we see ourselves, our dreams, our goals, our future. And so I've always been interested in helping people really deal with the thing underneath the thing, because so often in our lives we don't slow down and take a look at the core drivers of who we are and how we would approach any theme of our life, whether it be a work or marriage or parenting. And so it's a real joy just to sit with people and be a thought partner with them. And kind of Monday through Friday, I'm coaching folks. I also train and certify other coaches in my framework called the Primal Question, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But my goal is just to every time I'm starting with a client for a session, I always think to myself, Cameron, how can I improve the client's condition?
Yeah.
And my hope is that after that happens and after that hour, that somehow, in some way, in these conversations and the action items, that somebody's walking away having their condition improved. And that's really the work that I try to do with people today.
Awesome. What really got you so passionate about personal development and personal growth? Because a lot of the framework that you provide in the Seven Primal Questions book, it's really all about pursuing personal growth, getting
Mhm.
better, moving the needle on to get better.
Yeah, I think like most things, whether it's, you write a book or even in the work that you do, there's most likely a tie into your own story, right? And something that you've experienced in your own life. And so, I would be no different. My story is one of just continuing to take really the messy parts of my life and my history and my own sort of lies and limitations that I put on myself and continuing to look at those things and do my own inner work. Like I do 2 hours of therapy every month. I'm in a CODA 12 step group. I try to practice what I preach here. And I really believe like the reason why I'm so passionate about helping others is because I've experienced the benefits in my own life. And
Mm,
I've had some really powerful people help me, guide me, mentor me to help me really get to the unique place that I think I was called to be. And so, and everybody's story looks different and everybody's goals look different, but I have greatly benefited from doing my own work. And so I'm like, well, if it's helped me so much, I think maybe I'd like to help others with it and help kind of experience the same things that I have.
mm. Awesome. And you came out with this book, the Seven Primal Questions book.
Mhm.
And what I realized is after diving into this and looking at your website and just seeing the work that you're doing, I realized that the book is just a small element of really what the big picture is looking
Mhm.
at primal questions. So I wanted to focus on the book first, and then we can go into kind of the other stuff that
Mhm.
comes along with the book. What really was the heart behind, this book, The Seven Primal Questions?
Yeah, I think, it's a project that 5 years of research, 6,000 hours of one-on-one interviews, 22 group labs, had over 32,000 assessments given to really uh, culminate in a body of work and research that helps people understand the thing that is driving their life and really understanding the power of an emotional need and really what I would call our apex emotional need. And
Mhm,
so my passion for writing the book was twofold. Number one, I'm in the business of helping people. Okay. But number two, I think a lot of times personal development, therapy, psychology is just too complex. It's too many layers, too many, kind of big words and big ideas and lots of things to remember.
mhm,
And I love strength finders, I love Enneagram, I love a lot of those assessments and use them a lot in my own work and in my own life. But I really wanted to create something that was so simple that we could help you understand kind of the core driver of your life in about 15 to 20 minutes, and so simple in its execution that you could then facilitate the same assessment or the same discovery or revelation with somebody else after you went through it. And it's a very powerful framework, the primal question, but we've worked really hard to make it as simple as possible. And so obviously, so the two reasons is I wanted to help people, but I also wanted to help people in a way that is a lot easier than I think a lot of the other methodologies might be.
mhm. And you really undertook about 4 years of research, like you mentioned, over 6,000 hours of
Mhm.
interviews, group labs. What really was it in you that that encouraged you to be able to pursue such a long journey of research? Because this is no easy lift to be able to do this because research 6,000 hours, that's quite a bit of labor.
Yeah, well, interesting enough, like when you start out, there really isn't there's no necessary plan to write a book or to train other coaches or therapists in the model. There isn't sort of this big picture necessarily built out. I think for me, what I was working with my clients and um, started testing really a concept with them, and it just kept growing and growing. And it started out with kind of a nugget of an idea that really just after that, the thousands of hours and the research and testing just became, one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, this is true
Hmm.
about what kind of the thesis is on the research and kind of what motivates us, what makes us, give us our relational genius and sort of what I would call our primal gift, but also understanding like all of our triggers, understanding our inner programming. It's actually true how that happens, the power of a childhood imprint, again, kind of understanding those early experiences as a child and in our family and with our caretakers to see how that shapes how we see ourselves and the world and love and success and safety. And so it started as a very simple journey that turned into a very long journey and eventually became what it is today, where it's a book, it's a model. Coaches all over the world are using it now to help their clients. So, but it's really fun, Cameron, when you come across something that you're like, wow, this is actually true. This isn't just a Mike Foster idea that he hopes is true. With the research and with the time, you actually can validate your assumptions or your theories. And so that was an exciting journey to go on for me.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to take a look at your inner self, understand how you're wired, um, why you are the way you are. Because I'm a huge fan of personal growth and even professional development. I'm looking at my desk right now. There's 4 leadership books, but none of them are actually looking at my inner self,
Mm.
meaning peeling the onion on why you are the way you are. And what I really like about your book and the work that you do, it's really making everything make sense. It's challenging you to take a look at that inner self. And I think many are not willing to do that work because they're afraid of going into that inner self. They'll
Hmm.
go out and read or watch a leadership podcast or whatever that might look like. But really where it starts is working on yourself. And so Mike, why is that so important to really look at your inner self, how you're programmed, and the way you are? Why is it important to really peel the onion on that?
Yeah, one of the things when I'm working with companies and executives, I always encourage them to think about this fact that the most important project that they'll lead this year is themselves.
Mm,
And if you don't understand the rules of the game, if you don't understand the moving parts, it's sort of like, let's say I'm a big baseball fan. If I'm on the baseball field and I don't understand, that 3 strikes I'm out, 4 balls I walk, that I got to get to the base before the ball, the third baseman throws it to the first baseman. If I don't understand sort of those fundamentals, that puts me at a huge disadvantage in terms of playing the game of baseball. Okay.
mm,
The same thing is true for work and performance and marriage. If I don't understand the rules and understand kind of the core components of, the implications here, then I'm going to be at a disadvantage. And so to me, it's like the wisdom and the insight about understanding your emotional needs, understanding your gifts, understanding your triggers, understanding the things that that limits you. And again, it could just be a simple idea that got implanted early in your story that if that has so shaped your identity. If you're unaware of those things, you're not going to play well on the field. But
Yeah.
if you can identify those things, know the core pieces of those things, have language for those things, that just gives you a massive advantage. So to me, when I'm talking to leaders, I say, you want to be strategic. Part of the strategy is knowing yourself.
Hmm.
And you are not very strategic if you have a huge blind spot to the power of your inner drivers and your inner world.
Hmm. Yeah, one thing I heard, and I've heard this from several leaders that I look up to, is companies will come and go, titles will come and go, people will come and go, but you yourself will still remain.
Yes.
And making that time and effort to invest in yourself first before investing into the whatever you do, because oftentimes the reality is especially people in leadership and you go into your days just busy and doing and doing and doing, and then you come on Friday and you're just depleted and you haven't made the time to invest in yourself or take time, even simply taking time for yourself. We all have our day-to-day responsibilities, fathers, sons, mothers. We all have stuff to take care of on a day-to-day. And I really like this book because it challenges you to really take a look and take a pause and truly make time for yourself. And doing that, you see the fruits of it in every aspect of your life after that.
Yeah, because when you think about all the different domains that we show up in, Cameron, we're always there. Okay.
Hmm.
We are the consistent person that shows up in those domains. So why would we not be working on ourselves, knowing that if we work on ourselves, that's going to be beneficial to all the domains that we actually show up in.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I was curious about is there's a lot of what I would call personal growth books, a lot of self-improvement content out there. What would you say makes Primal Question, which is your overall framework, really stand out amongst others out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the significant distinctives in terms of both the model and the book is the high value of acceleration. And what I mean by that is sometimes when we think about personal growth or learning concepts or trying new thing, hey, I now know my strength finders results.
Hmm.
Uh, Sometimes that tends to be like a slow, monotonous project to actually get to the outcomes and results that you want. The thing about the primal question, both in the book and in the model, is we're about accelerating growth and getting there as quickly as possible.
Hmm.
One of the big critiques that I have about most therapy and personal development is that it's a super long journey to finally get to the destination that we want to get to.
Yeah.
And I'm always working under the sort of belief is that I bet we could get there faster if we were more orienting around the right things to talk about and to take action on. And so, what I believe is that there's a few key things that if you could be aware of and that you could take action on, and you are consistent with those key things, it's not like you're going to have to wait a year to have your life be completely transformed. Your life could be completely transformed in a week the moment you start practicing these things. And the impact on that in terms of your work and your marriage and your relationships and your relationship with yourself can be changed very quickly. And that's one of the things I think one of the distinctives here with the model.
Hmm. And I really like the way your book is structured. Is It's very application based. Uh, for those that are not readers, this is the best book that you can find if you're not readers, because I love the how it's so easily to digest, and also you have questions at the end. You have coaching moments. You have diagrams there to really help understand the overall primal question framework. So I've really enjoyed that. In addition to stories, and that's the way you
Mhm.
connect with people is learning from other people's stories, which I've enjoyed going through.
That's great. Yeah, I think Cameron, probably all of us have read books or read really good books that were just way too long and
Hmm.
started saying the same thing over and over again. I made it a real point to say, I'm just going to say what is absolutely necessary and no more.
Hmm.
And that made for a very sort of concise, quick book. And I also try to approach it from all of us have different learning styles. Not all of us like to read or talk about sort of philosophical ideas. Somebody just say some just like, give me the nuggets, give me the executive brief version, give me the just the picture, give me
Yeah.
the question I'm supposed to be thinking, give me the big idea. And so the book is really laid out in a way that hits the different learning preferences that we have.
Hmm.
And again, just trying to really serve the reader and serve the individual as best as I could within the framework of a book.
Yeah. Is speaking of stories, is there maybe a story that stands out to you from all the research that you've done that was just very, very memorable that you want to share on this podcast?
Yeah, well, it's one of the stories I actually shared in the book, and it's about a client that I had, and it was around primal question number two, which is the question of am I secure, which is basically having to do with do I have enough resource, do I have enough finances to protect myself and secure myself, and that emotional need is a very significant one that ties into the story with this client that I was working with. And he came from, so the primal question gets imprinted in our early childhood. It's basically a question that never went answered, a question that was answered with a no. And so it gets imprinted in our lives and we keep asking it over and over again subconsciously now as adults. And so for this client, his primal question was, am I secure? He was always wondering whether he was going to have enough money and resource to secure himself and his life. What's interesting about the story that I write in the book is this client comes and visits me in his $30 million jet. He flies into the airport near my house and he's worth about $500 million. He's running a company with thousands and thousands of employees, CEO, founder. And the thing that we talk about in our session is, does he have enough money to survive?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, most of us would go, hey, hey, buddy, you got a $30 million jet, $500 million. You're going to be okay. The numbers, your bank accounts, you're going to be okay. All right. But this is the point of the book and really the revelation or the power of this concept is that, and I write this in the book, that math is no match for emotions.
Mm.
Okay. And so the math looks good for this client. All right. The numbers look good, but he still is wrestling with that deep inner core need or that emotional need that he has, which is driving his life. So what we talk about is why can't he stop working 60-hour weeks and flying all around the country when he desires to do that? His wife desires him to be home more. He wants to spend more time with his kids, but there's this compelling need to feel financially secure that is driving his life. And even when he arrives at what we would call financial security,
Yeah.
it still doesn't feel like enough. And so you can see, again, we're talking about understanding the game of baseball, understanding what's actually happening. If he's unaware of how that emotional need for security is driving his decisions as a CEO, he's living at a huge disadvantage. Okay. And so that's the work that we're trying to do is understand what is the thing that's thing underneath the thing that is the thing that's driving all of it. And most of us don't can't identify that. And so we just continue to make the same choices that we make that may be working against our best interest.
Mm. Yeah, like even through my experience in my rapid rise in leadership, I was going after leadership role after leadership role, and I realized I finally got into the seat that I wanted to be in. And when I finally got into that seat, I realized I was depleted, I wasn't fulfilled, and I forgot who I was.
Mhm.
And starting to do that inner work and focusing on yourself really pays off dividends.
It
And
really does.
yeah,
And here's the thing that's really, I unpack this in the book also, um, is that your need, the need that you have, or the question that you have, there flows this incredible supernatural gift that comes with that need. So I'll give you an example. One of the primal questions is question 4, am I wanted? And this is the need, or the emotional need, to feel included, okay, to be
yeah.
pursued, to be wanted, right, to belong. And so what the research shows is that the thing that you need most is the thing that you actually give away to others. So what we do is we actually take whatever our primal question is, let's say it's am I wanted, and we put that over everybody else that we meet.
Yeah.
And over the years, because it's been our emotional need, we've become PhD experts on connection and belonging and wantedness. And we understand that because we've been thinking about it every day, okay, since we were kids. And so what we do is we become experts at answering that primal question with a yes for others. So think about this. If everybody that you meet, and you are now an expert in belonging,
Mhm.
connection, convening people, bringing people together, making the outsider feel wanted, that's an incredible gift that you have. And so it's kind of this both understanding ourselves in terms of what our emotional need is, but it's also understanding that there's this really powerful strength that comes from it. And how do we maximize that? How do we deploy that into our companies, into our leadership? For example, I want, if I was going to open up a new store, let's say I have a storefront and I'm launching a new store, I would want a Q4, am I wanted person, kind of leading that charge of pulling people into the community, creating gatherings and functions, and getting people connected with my store, because that person, the am I wanted person, is going to be brilliant at that. Now here's another primal question, the primal question of am I safe, which where it's about safety, the need for safety and protection. The am I safe person is not going to be amazing at bringing people into the store because they're
Mm.
going to be thinking about safety. Now, the safety person is going to be a really great asset if you're trying to figure out risks in the store. Okay. Things that could go wrong in the store. That person is going to be a wealth of knowledge and helpful there. And so part of the case that I make in the book is understand your emotional need, yes, and understand you better in terms of your triggers, and what you need to feel sort of uh, uh, in a place of flourishing, but also understand that you have to understand this incredible gift that you have and look for ways to give it away.
Mm. I'd love for you, Mike, to share some of the other opportunities and other things that you have to offer within this framework that or model that you've really developed. Because I realize the book is just an element of the work that you're
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah. So the fascinating or really exciting thing about the primal question model is that it has a lot of different applications in terms of our lives and areas of that we find ourselves in. So the primal question, if you're a parent, the primal question will help your parenting. And here's why, because the research shows that we parent to our primal question. And what I mean by that is the way you're going to raise your kids is through your own primal question. So like for me, my primal question is, am I safe? So I am going, the theme of my parenting is going to be making sure my kids are safe and protected. Okay. My wife's primal question is, am I loved? So her theme for parenting is going to be making sure that my kids feel loved, seen, heard. And she does an amazing job at that. And I do an amazing job at protecting. But we have to be aware of that question that's driving our parenting style, because the other tendency is that we tend to over-index on that. Okay. And we also forget about the other questions or the other emotional needs that our kids have. And we need to be answering those also. We can't just make sure our kids know that they're super loved, but like question number 5 is about success. Question number 6 is about being good enough and performance. Question number 7 is about purpose. And so we've got a good parenting is answering all 7 questions for our kids. There's also a huge application in terms of marriage or romantic relationships. See, one of the things that I talk about in the book is that you cannot have a relationship, an ongoing, sustainable relationship with somebody who continually answers your primal question with a no. Okay. And what is often happening, I do some couples counseling, and what is almost always happening in terms of conflict and challenge in a relationship is not, we're not having enough date nights, or we're not, we don't have enough sex, or whatever the thing is, all those other kind of typical relationship issues that happen in marriages. The problem is your spouse is answering you, either intentionally or accidentally answering your primal question with a no. And so we got to get our conversations in terms of our marriages or relationships oriented around, how do I answer your primal question with a yes? How can I make you feel wanted if you're a question 4? How do I make you feel secure if you're a question 2? How do I make you feel safe if you're a question 1? How do I help you feel that your life is full of purpose if you're a question 7? And getting you talking about the right things. The biggest issue for most of our lives, and the problem in most personal development, is we are operating in the branches and not the roots. And so when we're operating the branches, we do a lot of trimming of branches, but those branches grow back. And so now we're back at the same problem, trying to trim those branches again. Instead, if you could understand the roots of why things are happening or what's going on here, you can change the tree.
Oh, this is great. Well, I really hope that those listening get a copy of this book. And after this interview, you can find out more information on how to get a copy of Mike's book, The Seven Primal Questions. But Mike, you also have a podcast. I'd love you to share about that podcast as well.
Yeah, totally. So there's the Primal Question podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's a weekly podcast that comes out on Tuesdays. And yeah, just talking about these types of issues, understanding ourselves better. A lot of times I'm interviewing people with with their different primal questions, and we're exploring that. And then one final thing, Cameron, if your audience who's listening right now wants to discover what their primal question is, I'd encourage them to go to primalquestion.com, which is our website. And there's a free assessment there. It takes about 5 minutes. And you'll get your results. You'll get kind of the main dynamics of that particular question. You get a little coaching video from me around that specific result that you got. And that's a really good, easy next step if you're interested in this topic, to go to primalquestion.com, take the assessment, and kind of get started in this discovery journey.
Oh, awesome. And for those that are looking for that link, it's all in the podcast description on whichever platform you're listening on. So you can take your free assessment there. Well, Mike, this was a great time to spend time together and get to know you and a little bit more about the work that you're doing now. And thank you for the work that you do. And really been enjoying taking a deep dive into this book.
Great. Thanks, Cameron. It's been awesome talking with you today, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. to take advantage of some of the resources that Mike has to offer regarding the 7 Primal Questions framework. All those links are provided below in the podcast description, or if you're watching on YouTube, it's all there. You can go check it out. Go and take the free assessment. It's highly valuable and highly recommend it. I also encourage you to get a copy of the book, The 7 Primal Questions, that's written by Mike Foster. It's on Amazon. You can also buy it from his website. I'll provide the link as well. And I really hope this podcast interview has really added value to you, and that you take the opportunity to look in your inner self and take that self-reflection and take advantage of some of the resources that Mike has to offer. And thank you for tuning in. If you found this podcast episode enjoyable and valuable, feel free to share it to someone that might need to hear this episode as well. And feel free to go back and listen to some of the previous episodes on this podcast. I've had a great variety of guests on so far in this podcast, and would love to, for you, if this is your first time, to go back and listen to it, or maybe watch it on my YouTube channel as well. I really hope that this podcast continues to add value to you. And if you haven't gotten a copy of my book yet, Navigation and Discovery, A Path of Navigating and Discovering Through Your Journey of Faith, it's a small clip of my story and my journey through my high school years, college, and how I navigated and set myself up for a trajectory of growth in an organization. And so look out for book 2 coming up probably later this summer or early fall, wrapping that up. And that was more of going to be a leadership book, so look out for more information on that soon. And also take a look at some of the other podcasts that I co-host and host, just to name a few: Divine Revelations Unleashed, the Leadership Download podcast, the Executive Leadership podcast. Go and take a look at those and see if those are attractive for you. And again, feel free to like, share, subscribe. Go on my YouTube channel, subscribe to that as well. All those links are in the description on whichever platform you're listening on. And thank you again for tuning in. And we'll catch you on another brand new episode next Tuesday morning. Take care.